you feel comfortable saying through the archaeological record,
there's evidence for Mulek's arrival in the New World at the time and place he says it happened within a Mesoamerican landscape.
Now, and associated
Wow.
This is what makes this the hot take, right? It was taken off the black market, but it has been authenticated. There was some disputes of its authenticity at first, but it has persevered through that and is considered genuinely authentic today.
Glory, glory, glory.
The Dead Sea Scrolls came in hot at first. They came in off of the black market at first, and then they found more scrolls in more caves, which verified the time and place, and then they matched the ink on the scrolls. It does seem to be that this is the Mulek from the Book of Mormon. I feel fairly confident in that.
basically means little king.
Wow, there might actually be archaeological evidence for Mulek.
The following is an episode of Ward Radio and does not represent the thoughts or the opinions of KHTS, its owners, or any of its affiliates, nor does it represent the official opinion of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. With that said, sit back, relax, and enjoy the program.
Well, Leventa Stela 3, one thing that shows is a proposed stela demonstrating a foreigner arrival that matches the name of Mulek as found through the characters document and then here written.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to Ward Radio. I'm your host, Cardinellis. Today I'm joined in the studio by Josh Gailey, who is the author of Witnessing Miracles, Historical Evidence for the Resurrection and the Book of Mormon, as well as by Jerry Grover, who's the author of this super cool book, Calendars and Chronology of the Book of Mormon. And today we are actually analyzing a bold claim that black market artifacts recently discovered prove that Mulek from the Book of Mormon, Mulek, I don't know how you pronounce it, but Mulek from the Book of Mormon was the real deal, a real possibility. It could have happened, and we've got the receipts. And by the receipts, we mean the archaeological seals. Josh Gailey, tell us all about this. My archaeological administrator in chief. That's not a very cool alliteration, but you know what I'm saying. Our archaeological mastermind, Josh Gailey, tell us how this goes. Go.
Let's all put on our fedoras and let's go into the old world for a little bit. And then we're going to shift across the ocean real quick in about 20 seconds and then get into the new world. We're going to do covering the basis of archaeological evidence that's both in old world and new world for Mulek. So if we pull up the slide, we're going to talk about some seals or booyah for a second. These are small, tiny
Did you just
artifacts.
say booyah?
Booyah, baby.
Are they called booyah?
B-U-L-L-A-E. You know, so it's
B-U-L-L.
Booyah.
I literally thought you were just like super stoked that you've been able to prove Mulek from the Book of Mormon. You're like, booyah, booyah. Just like, okay, keep going.
But first we got to go to Baruch. And so we're going to look at some seals. And these are small. What these were a way to stamp and signify a name on something for, like, say there was a piece of paper that was going or an important thing that you were sending to somebody, a dignitary, and you were signing it. You wanted to know, hey, this is from me. Well, these seals, what they would do is they would take it, dip it in wax, impress upon it, and it would have the insignia and the inscription of the name of the person that was sending out. This is mail carrier service 2,000 years ago.
Okay, so for those that are listening on the radio, we're looking at a slide, and we're looking at a slide of this very small, less than an inch by less than an inch. Almost looks like an Egyptian scarab that can be rolled into wax or
that's like a little clay impression of what it was, right?
If you ever go to the antiquities dealers in Jerusalem or in the Middle East, if you're on the market for some seals, it's really interesting. They'll just pull out little rolls of Play-Doh and they'll let you actually just squish into the Play-Doh the seals and decide which one you want to buy, because similar to how
I bought one that said Cardon on the black market a couple years ago, so I don't know where that came from.
It's actually Cardonicus maximus. You have mispronounced the terminology.
Perfect, because I think on the seal that we're going to talk about, the first one that's on the board, it describes to everybody knows and remember in the book of Jeremiah, and actually the chapter is chapter 36, the verse is verse 4. We learn the name of Jeremiah's scribe, somebody that was scribing for him as a prophet. He was writing down the prophecies, and actually Baruch is even suffers with Jeremiah a little bit. There's some
What's the verse?
Jeremiah 36 verse 4. It just gives the name. So we learn the name through the Bible of this scribe, and we learn it as the name of Baruch, Baruch. Okay, so Baruch, the scribe of Jeremiah. That's how it's described in the Bible. And then when we go into the archaeological record, there is a seal that has been discovered that says the following. It says, belonging to Berechiahu, son of Neriahu, the scribe.
Well, it says in Jeremiah, I just literally pulled up the verse right here, and it literally says, and Jeremiah called Baruch the son of Neriah, and Baruch wrote from the mouth of Jeremiah all the words of the Lord, which he had spoken unto him upon a roll of the book. So Baruch, the son of Neriah, sounds a lot like, what was it? Berechiahu,
son of Neriahu.
Okay, so I assume something linguistics going on there that can be proved.
Exactly.
Right?
And what they're saying here is this clearly is the seal. I think nobody would dispute this, that this is the seal of the scribe for Jeremiah. But what we're learning in the Bible is the Bible's probably representing the shortened name of,
like Dave instead of David.
Exactly.
Bob
my name's
Robert.
Everybody calls me Josh. My name is Joshua. So you got it. I mean, that it's a little bit more technical and fancier than that, but that's the basics. Okay, now what's interesting is we have a son of Mosiah that's named in the Book of Mormon, and his name is Mulek. And in fact, in the original manuscript, it's Mulek, but it's Mulek. And there's a seal in the Old World that has been uncovered in the Levant that it actually came off of this is what makes this the hot take, right? It was taken off the black market, but it has been authenticated. There was some disputes of its authenticity at first, but it has persevered through that and is considered genuinely authentic today as an artifact. And it describes Malchiahu ben Hamelech. Okay, that's rendering basically son of, this name of the son of the king. That's what the seal is describing.
And do we know if this is that exact same name, son of that king? Because there's probably more than one Bob, son of Mike. You know what I'm saying? Or can we definitively say that, no, this is the Mulek of the Book of Mormon, or is it a Mulek, not the Mulek?
Well, I would say the pattern fits perfectly with Baruch, enough to say there's a certain level of certainty, but it's never in archaeology 100% certainty.
Because only Sith speak in absolutes.
Yeah. So you have a son of the king of something that's dating to the rough time period of Zedekiah. So it's pretty safe to say that this is probably a son of King Zedekiah, and it gives the name as Malchiahu, and that seems to be a long-form version of the name Mulek in the Book of Mormon, just like Baruch would be the short version of the name Berechiahu. So we see based on the pattern of names and also an established trend within the archaeological record that the Book of Mormon is matching a scriptural tradition of shortening the name of somebody from that time and from that place. And so it just seems to be a great match, that it does seem to be that this is the Mulek from the Book of Mormon. I feel fairly confident in that. Jerry, anything you want to throw in there with that?
No, I mean, like you say, it matches what you would expect. And so, again, we wish we had better provenance on the item, meaning that it was found in the dig, and we could show that it was actually dated correctly, that kind of thing. We do show that it.
Yeah, that's the struggle with any archaeology, right? Is if you don't have the layers and the stratigraphy of where it came from, it's impossible to say with 100%
but
certainty.
Isn't there enough merit on the object itself? Because, like, for example, the Dead Sea Scrolls, we're using HMD to date the Dead Sea Scrolls, right? Who cares if Mike found it in a cave on his property on his farm, or whether
it would lock
Janet
it in.
Found
it would lock it in.
Yeah, that's what
okay.
I'm
So that we would like to take it one step further and say it came from this place and it's in this layer dating to this time period. You just lose that when it's coming off the black.
During the Depression or during World War II, there was tons of pennies that instead of using the traditional copper that we needed for the war effort, they were made out of that, out of nickel or something, which was less necessary for the war effort. So there was a couple of years where those cool, crazy pennies were actually made out of non-copper instead of copper. if I'm trying to set up the Museum of Cool Coins LLC in Minnesota, do I really care if the cool non-copper penny with Abraham Lincoln on the front of it came from the pocket of Dave or Stephanie? No, because it's the artifact, and the artifact stands on its own merit, right?
Well, see, to your point, like, okay, so the Dead Sea Scrolls came in hot at first. They came in off of the black market at first, and then they found more scrolls in more caves, which verified the time and place, and then they matched the ink on the scrolls to the archaeological site of Qumran, and so there was layers to it to authenticate, and so there's no question of the provenance of that artifact. What we could say here with these two seals is we have a seal that is properly provenance to a time and place with a certain style of naming somebody, and that's matched here with Mulek. So it is strong. I would love to say, hey, we also have the exact location. We just don't.
Okay.
So.
All right, rock on. Jerry, anything to add, my man?
No, not old world stuff. So.
Okay, cool. Hit it. Keep going, Josh.
With that, you would say like we could do a whole podcast or an episode or live stream together and say, well, that's enough. Like, isn't this great? But we can actually give 2 more layers to Mulek here that are powerful and concrete in a certain way from the archaeological record. First, we have an artifact that is a transcription. We have the transcription from the character's the character's document itself, which is claimed and purported to be a transcription of, and we think it's from John Whitmer, one of the scribes to the plates. So he would have had access to the plates as he was scribing, possibly to write these down. But he wrote down some characters that supposedly came from the golden plates that Joseph Smith procured in New York. And Jerry is the leading expert on looking at that linguistically and identifying what those characters meant in what language, and then reading it. And what the glyphs we have on our screen now, you're going to look at these. Somebody that would be just listening to this, it's ink blots on a page, but they have significance.
One looks like a C, one looks almost like a handwritten 8. Another looks like
a reverse S with a slash through it might be another way to describe that one.
Yes, a reverse S with a slash through it. Then we've got almost literally just like a dash, like
but see the little curve underneath
hashtag.
that? See that curve underneath that dash?
Yeah.
There's some funky stuff going on there.
Yeah, it's like hashtagging. So this is like 18th century Twitter. You know? No, I'm just kidding. All right. So Jerry, hit it. Tell us what's going on here, my man.
Okay. Well, it's a larger discussion. We don't have enough time to discuss, but the character's document, as I looked at it, it's pretty clear most of the glyphs were hieratic. So I did a translation of it, and it basically is kind of this portion looks to be something to the effect of the lost preface of Mosiah, which is the time where they discuss when they actually went from Zarahemla, or went from land of Nephi to Zarahemla and encountered the people of Zarahemla or Mulek, kind of descendants of Mulek. So it's actually, the name appears in that context. It's read from right to left. So Hebrew is read from right to left. So you actually have to start on the right. The first glyph is, I call it, it's actually a title. And it actually, if you look, hieratic is a shorthand for the monumental Egyptian. If you look at the monumental glyph form, it's a fish sitting up on 2 legs that are walking. Okay. It actually means vizier or administrator. I think the premise is that Mulek probably arrived as a king, but they landed in the land of desolation, which was currently occupied by the Olmecs/Jaredites, who had their own kings. In fact, were very defensive of their kings. So it probably looks like
Mulek. You can throw up the map if you want to.
Yeah,
cool. Awesome.
So Mulek came in as a king, ended up being some sort of vassal king.
We're looking at the Isthmus of Tehuantepec for people that are curious, and it's a map, and it has different archaeological sites that are Olmec sites that correspond to Book of Mormon times and places like Leventa, San Lorenzo, and other Olmec sites.
Right. And,
cool.
And Leventa was occupied at the time because there's actually a couple sites in the Olmec that were abandoned in like 1000 BC. We know that Mulek escaped Jerusalem. 587 BC was the destruction of Jerusalem, so it was prior to that. So he presumably landed some period of time later. He's still alive, obviously. So somewhere in 550 BC, something like that.
Yeah, we know he lands in the land northward because of Helaman chapter 6, verse 10.
Okay.
We know that his people come up to the south wilderness of Bountiful because of Alma chapter 2, verse 30 and 31. And then they later migrate to build and inhabit Zarahemla in Mosiah 25, verse 2.
Yeah.
So we kind of can track them from the northeast quadrant of Book of Mormon lands in Mesoamerica and track them across the Isthmus of Tehuantepec and up in Jerry's model, it's the Grijalva.
Yeah. So the title itself would make sense, this walking fish administrator title. The next two glyphs, kind of your vertical and then your horizontal line, those in hieratic mean to be young. It means to be young. It also means name. The little kind of the S with the slash through it.
Yeah.
That particular glyph means male. And then the last glyph, the little kind of curly C in hieratic, means lord, master, or chief. The derivation of Mulek in Hebrew basically derives from Malachi, and this isn't my work, this is just the Book of Mormon Onomasticon, indicate that it's basically means little king.
Because the MLK, Melech, is king in Hebrew, and it's the shortened version of his name. So it seems to be a play on this to be like little king.
Yeah.
So like a little baby in Spanish is bebito instead of bebé. And so you're just saying like this is like Melequito.
But they shorten it instead of like
lengthening it.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Rock on. Okay.
So basically, so you're looking at young male chief, right? And so it matches the Mulek name, right? And again, these are they're not phonetic. That's the meaning of the name that we're looking at here, the Egyptian.
Okay, yeah.
So that actually matches
So
very
the characters
well.
document would match what we would expect based on the translation of the Book of Mormon. So there's a convergence there. We have the convergence of the seal. Then we have the convergence of the actual long form of the name. And then we take that and we look at the characters document and we have a convergence of the translation of that based on Jerry's research. So right now we have layers that we're building here to strengthen the evidence of Mulek being a real person in a particular place at a particular time.
Is it just me, or does it kind of seem like there's more convergences here of information, of evidences, of data, of storylines lining up? There's more convergences here than we have for half the claims about Genghis Khan and Alexander the Great and how far they made it in their conquests.
Well, let me say this. There's no evidence for horses for anything with Genghis Khan. Okay, but
very little,
it's scant.
Okay,
but we know that they dominated 1,000-mile
exactly
through horses. Okay, so archaeology is the scattered remains of trash. So we don't get the full picture. We don't
dig up dinosaurs?
We don't dig up dinosaurs.
For those people that are listening on the radio,
archaeology is the systematic study of humans based on the material analysis of their remains. So archaeologists studies people and groups based on the trash they leave behind, basically.
Yeah, and there's a shirt for those that are listening on the radio. He's wearing a shirt that literally says, "No, I do not dig up dinosaurs." Quote, archaeologists.
Every archaeologist has said that to somebody.
Wait, so what are the people that dig up dinosaurs called?
Paleontologists.
Oh, okay. I just call them boring. But no, I'm totally kidding. Dinosaurs are actually totally rad. That was a joke. I don't need letters. One of my buddies once was a comedian who actually made a joke about why on earth are hot air balloons baskets made out of wicker. You know what I'm saying? He's like, if I'm up in a hot air balloon 5,000 miles up in the air, I don't want, to be in a wicker basket. And he had this hilarious stand-up routine that he did about that in New York. And one time when he walked out of the club owner was like, hey, I got to tell you, there's some people here that want to talk to you. And apparently they were super offended balloonists who are like, hey, these wicker baskets are like safety rated and stuff. And we don't appreciate you mocking our passion, It's just like, whoa. So anyway, paleontologists, I don't need angry letters. You're awesome. You're great. I'm not making fun of your wicker baskets.
Let's go dig some dinosaurs up. It's awesome.
Yeah. So keep going, Josh.
Yeah. So we're going to take this one level deeper. Okay. In the archaeological record, in the New World, in Mesoamerica, in the land of the Olmec and the Epi-Olmec, crossing over with Mulek coming in to this time period in roughly 600 to 400 BC. he's coming into a specific place. And why don't we throw up that slide to show the where? But where we are is the northern end of like the Tuxtla Mountains and some of that surrounding region. Okay, where we're going to come in and say, okay, Mulek landed here and dispersed, and we're going to evaluate. We have identified what the name might mean based on the characters document. We've looked and found archaeological evidence for him in the old world, and we're going to add one layer deeper, and we're going to go into the new world and say, wow, there might actually be archaeological evidence for Mulek. Let's throw up the next slide.
Okay.
Okay. Now, did you have the Monument 13 in here, or?
I think what I have in here is
just the other,
the Maya glyphs and the Stela one from La Morjara.
Can you look up the
and La Venta Stela
Monument 13?
Yeah, 13's not on.
Okay, in real time, I am looking up La Venta Monument 13, and I'm going to be throwing it up on the screen for those that are listening on the radio. This is, I've seen this before. This is, I think a lot of people try and say, like the oldest written record in the New World, right? And it's kind of a rounded stele that has some kind of cool, super archaic, just basic clip art images of like a turkey hawk, a foot, which means like a traveler or something like that. Correct me. Tell me where I go wrong.
Yeah. So this is at La Venta. The time period is 600 BC to 400 BC. The reason I'm doing this one first, because I think this looks like the first arrival. It has, basically somebody dressed like they're from the Near East, beard and mustached. There are those three glyphs. The one glyph, like as you mentioned, means traveler, so somebody that's traveled. The bottom little bird glyph actually is a turkey vulture actually has a headband, which in the Maya and also others indicate king or a foreign ruler. We can't really read the other two glyphs above it. So this does look like, okay, some evidence that we have somebody arriving, some foreign king arriving. Then we can go to as part of your presentation, the stela.
Let's go to the next slide, Carden.
Okay, awesome.
And keep going, Jerry.
Okay.
Yeah, and so in this one, you actually see on the right, it looks like an encounter of some Olmec royalty of some sort. And then you have this, they called it kind of the Uncle Sam, because it has on the right somebody, again, that looks like a bearded foreign derivation, but he is actually wearing a fish headdress. So it actually is kind of the walking fish, the title that he's given in the characters document seems to match, what his actual.
So there's shark headdresses featured on leaders in the archaeological record from the time period, like in La Morjara, Stela 1. It's not far from this area. It's not far from Tres Zapotes. And Jerry brought this up in some of his books. Tres Zapotes for Jerry is the Jacob Ugath city location described in the Book of Mormon. But it gives an example of a shark headdress being, laid on top of a leader from the time period.
Right. Yeah. So the headdress is representing the leader. So.
Wow.
Okay. So
this is intriguing. So all of this, just in our last couple of minutes here, tell us, I guess, if you could summarize this into 60 seconds, how do we just put all of this toothpaste back in one tube of Mulek?
Well, La Venta Stela 3, one thing that shows is a proposed stela demonstrating a foreigner arrival that matches the name of Mulek as found through the characters document, and then here written in a language that's yet to be interpreted. But, it seems to match the fact that it's matching what the Book of Mormon says would happen to a foreigner coming into the landscape. It seems to be like we're showing Mulek's arrival into the New World through the archaeological record.
So you feel comfortable saying through the archaeological record, there's
evidence for Mulek's arrival in the New World at the time and place he says it happened within a Mesoamerican landscape.
Now, and associated
wow.
And then associated with that, you've got these other little glyphs that he's going to show, the Maya glyphs. You want to?
Yeah, I don't. They're up top.
Top. Basically, another a Mayan, David Kelly, he's deceased, but a Mayanist actually said, "Hey, I'm finding that there's 3 day names in the Maya that actually match this Hebrew letters in meaning and also somewhat phonetically. One of those is Mulek, which features fish, a little fish in its day name. It also, this corresponds with ADIs and PDIs. Won't get into that. So there's actually some even Hebrew possible correlation with that they were using the letters maybe corresponded with some of the day names in the Maya, one of which is Mulek. In the Maya, it's pronounced Mulek.
Wow.
M-U-L-U-C. So that name exists, is what I'm saying, and it actually has some Hebrew connection.
Whoa. Is this more, so instead of Udo-Aztecan, we got to call it Udo-Mayan, or like what? How many of these Hebraisms are floating around out there?
Well, you actually do find, of the Udo-Aztecan, you do find loanwords early on from Nahuatl, which is the Udo-Aztecan, into Maya.
And
so it's possible it came from there.
There are groups of speakers within the Mesoamerican territories of that language family.
Yeah.
Like there are.
Wow.
So these are kind of, they're not like this direct path, but you're seeing these kind of obtuse correlations, I guess, if you want to call it, of that name, meaning fish and having correspondence with Hebrew.
Okay. Wow. This is absolutely incredible. Unfortunately, I keep saying this at the end of every single one of these episodes, but it keeps on being true, dang it, that I could talk to you guys for hours. This is absolutely intriguing stuff. The amount of archaeological, the amount of geological, the amount of just evidences that have been popping up about the Book of Mormon quite possibly happened exactly how Joseph Smith translated it so many years ago. This is just some incredible stuff. Before we get out of here, Jerry Grover, his book is called Calendars and Chronology of the Book of Mormon. You can check it out there. Also, Josh Gailey right here wrote the book Witnessing Miracles, Historical Evidence, for the Resurrection and the Book of Mormon, where he literally talks about the resurrection of Jesus Christ, the historical evidences thereof, and how they match the historical evidences of the Book of Mormon. Super intriguing read. Check those out. If you want to see more of these episodes, you can check us out on YouTube. You can check us out on hometownstation.com, or you can check us out where fine books are sold. No, I wish I got to write a book to be able to say that, but it's almost just worth it just to be able to say that. Either way,
and by fine books, he means buy Josh's book on Amazon.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. By that, I mean Amazon.com. So anyway, as always, guys, for this and more, please check us out at WardRadio.com.